Hey everybody, this is Mike LaPone from Symphony X and Mike LaPone's Silent Assassins. And this is SAGAS.
What's going on, everybody? This is Corb, the Serpentine Skipwith, and I'm here with very special guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? My name is BG. I'm the host and founder of Local Band Smokeout. It's basically a show where we check out artists of any genre from anywhere around the world, and we do it on like pretty much a daily basis, as well as a bunch of YouTube stuff as well. LocalBandSmokeout.com, by the way.
Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me, brother.
Nah, my pleasure. And you know what's cool? Before we get right into it, is I've been following you even before you blew up years ago. I remember we were talking, so it's cool from looking outside and seeing you blow up the way you have, seeing how big you've gone. It's a pretty surreal and badass experience.
Well, I appreciate you watching and tuning in for so long, dude. It's very cool of you, because there was a time when for a couple of years nobody watched anything I did, but I just kept at it every single day, even though everyone around me was like, give it up, stop doing that, stop uploading videos, it's not going to work. And I just said, nah, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, well, that's your persistence, that's your attitude, and that's why you are where you are. So starting from the beginning, how did you get into music in general? Where did your passion for the music industry come from?
Man, that's a tough one. The first concert I ever went to was Paul McCartney Wings when I was 4 years old. And I don't really remember the show that much, but I remember being like, well, I kind of want to do that. And to this day, Paul McCartney is kind of like my idol. Even though I don't really listen to music that he makes lately. I am a big Beatles fan, but I kind of did the band thing for a couple of years, in and out of a couple of different bands, and those didn't really work. Some did better than others, but eventually when I was in the last band I was in, which was called Hit 'Em, I had this idea one day. This is when the first reaction video like I ever saw on YouTube. This is probably like 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, these people are just smoking weed and listening to bands and getting like subs and plays and money from this on YouTube. I was like, I could do that. I already do that every day anyway. So I pitched it to the bandmates and they were like, this is the stupidest idea you've ever had. And it made me mad that they didn't like that idea. So I was like, you know what? Out of spite, I'm just going to shoot a couple of these and see what happens. And looking back on those old school, like first reactions ever, they're absolutely terrible. And we just focused on like getting as high as we could during a 4-minute song. And it kind of wasn't as much about the music as it is today. But like I said earlier, so we did that. I probably did like 2,000 of those and no one ever watched on YouTube. I think in the first couple of years, like the first 4 or 5 years, we had maybe 3,000 subs in like 4 years, which is not that many for as much content as we were putting out. So I just kept doing it and then working 9-to-5 jobs, but I'd wake up every day, shoot my 3 or 4, go about. And then eventually I had a buddy who was like, he hit me up and he was like, dude, you are like the reaction guy. And now it's starting to get popular, but no one's going to see them unless you throw in like a couple of big bands. And I fought against it for a long time. But eventually, I think the first big band reaction I ever did was Rammstein. And it got like 3,000 views in like 4 hours. And I was like, oh my God, I got to do this. So now I try to keep like a couple of small bands and then a couple of big ones, because those are the ones that like people are looking for, but it helps the smaller guys get seen also. So I kind of try to balance it.
Yeah, nice. Before we get more into that, do you believe the famous Paul McCartney conspiracy theories?
I don't. I know exactly what you're talking about, that Paul is dead and we have a clone, just like we have an Avril Lavigne clone and so on. I don't, but I think all this stuff just like helps for marketing for at the time when that rumor is out. It's just another way of people talking about the Beatles and Paul, and then you're like, let's go see what new album they got. And I think this was in like the 70s or so that rumor occurred, but I don't believe it. Do you believe that? Do you believe it?
I'll be honest, I've seen some pretty convincing documentaries.
Me too. There's some convincing evidence out there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, my opinion can still be weighed either way. So I'm quite in the middle on this, in the fence.
Cool.
Okay, so when did it for you for the local band Smokeout? At what point did you realize, oh shit, I could do this full time? This could be a full time thing for me. When was that pop in your career with it?
I mean, I thought it could have been a full-time thing, probably like year 4 or 5, but it didn't really actually become a full-time thing until COVID happened. When COVID happened, I was a server at a restaurant. That's kind of what I've always done because it's very flexible with playing shows when I was in and out of band. So I was always a server, and all the restaurant stuff shut down. I'm in California, and I remember the last day they were like, "Oh, you're probably still going to get paid for a little bit," and then all like the relief funds and stuff was coming in, and I was like, I technically kind of don't have to go to work for like a year and still get paid. So I was like, if ever now's the moment, it's now. So I just ramped it up and started doing like 8 or 9 reactions every single day. It's supposed to like 3 or 4, but started really getting into YouTube analytics. Like if you go to your analytics page and start seeing like what works and doesn't work, what countries are watching, what content's working. I kind of really started focusing on that and like targeting certain things. And then all of a sudden, 1,000, 2,000 subs a month and growing and growing and growing. So I'd kind of got the hang of it. And plus YouTube tutorials as far as like how to generate subs and get more likes and comments and stuff like those things really work. I encourage people to explore that and see what they can learn, because a lot of us feel like, oh, well, we know what we're doing, we know how to do it, blah, blah, but there's always something you can learn from somebody else. So that's kind of, I would say like 3 years ago is when I really started to push it as far as I can make this an everyday job.
Yeah. What's one of the hardest things about doing this job for you that maybe listeners and subscribers may not fully understand behind the scenes?
It is an 80-hour-a-week job for me. I spend about 80 hours a week. I do almost nothing besides going on YouTube and doing the Twitch live show every single day. And it's so I'll wake up in the morning. Usually the night before I'll have my notes ready for whatever I'm shooting, but making the thumbnails takes 10 to 15 minutes to do all the thumbnails, and then getting the notes so I can plug this band's social media pages and where they're from, and then editing them, bouncing them, uploading them, putting all the tags. All that takes like hours every single day. And then we have a guest on the Twitch show, which is at twitch.tv/Local Band Smokeout almost every day. That involves research into the artist. So I'm not just, like asking dumb questions that other people ask them all the time. And then we have our winners that we then have to put them in a tournament. All that's done, work in some family time, make dinner. And then I go right back to here and start working on all the notes I need to begin the next day. So that's like 13 or 14 hours, probably almost every single day. But the thing that is, like you said, that goes on behind the scenes, a lot of people don't know, is I feel like you need a team. And I've been fortunate enough to find my business partner, Lizzie, and other friends and mods, if you will, that keep the show running. And they all have small jobs, nothing that overtakes what they normally do as far as having a normal job and their families and whatnot. They all have small jobs. But all that stuff helps. Like one person helps run the Instagram. And it's you think, oh, you can do Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube all by yourself. But on an every single day basis, it is too much work. So I encourage people to ask for help. And if you see someone constantly in your live streams that is engaging and you get along with that person, reach out to them, see if they'd be interested in helping. So yeah.
What's it like, because for you, doing so much work that you do, you're always in the public eye, with your Twitch streams and your streams in this and your Facebook, and, you're always surrounded by people online, always in that public eye. What does that feel like? It just must be like, you're always on, to me, it would feel like I'm always on observation, I'm always people would look at me.
You kind of get used to it. I'm not a shy person in public by any means, but I'm definitely more shy in public than I am behind the camera. And I know it's weird. It's like when the camera comes on, I'm just so used to it that I just kind of like I don't want to become a different person because that's not the right terminology, but you go into like work mode. Like to me, this is my work. So it's the harder I work, the more we grow that day, or the more couple of bucks I can make that day. But then when I'm in person, I'm usually just stoned and chilling and jamming the music and having fun with people. And I'm not nearly as crazy, but yeah, that's kind of, that's it, I suppose.
What's the most famous guest you've had on?
It depends. In my eyes, we've had Kevin Lyman, the creator of Warped Tour, which is by no means a household name to some people, but in my eyes, he was one of our bigger guests because the dude is so busy. Even having not doing Warped Tour anymore, he was super nice guy, and just we got to ask him a lot of industry questions. But I would also say we've had Kellen Quinn of Sleeping with Sirens on. We've had Spencer of Under Oath on. We've had a couple of big guests. It's hard to say who is the actual biggest because we've had some overseas, like Japanese acts on, and some people's eyes, those artists are bigger. But I would probably say Kellen Quinn or Kevin Lyman would be what I would think is the top two. Now, it's funny that we talked about Paul McCartney earlier because I've reached out to his management, totally expecting them to turn it down, and they never answered back. But that would be I would be starstruck and stuttering a lot if I had a chance to talk to him.
You already know what your first question has to be if you get it. Are you a clone? You a clone?
He's gonna go, I'm out.
Yeah, instantly. Kellen Quinn, because in my head, I envisioned him being a very timid guy because he sounds in his music. He sounds like a timid, like, dude. Was he? Or was he like? Was he more confident than he looks? Was he like?
He was super down to earth and sweet, and that one kind of came about a weird way. At one time, I was like, Twitter has like no copyrights whatsoever, and like a year and a half ago, they allowed 10-minute uploads. So I started thinking, and I don't do this very often, but I was like, let me upload a Sleeping with Sirens reaction, coincidentally featuring Spencer of Under Oath. And he retweeted it and he was like, oh, great reaction, dude, blah, blah. And I just messaged him back and I was like, hey, would you ever want to come on the show? And he was doing no cover at the time. And he like looked into our show and he was like, well, I don't really smoke. Can Justin, who's in the band, also come on? Because he smokes all the time. And I was like, absolutely. I'm not going to say no to that. But yeah, when they were on, nicest people ever. And I got to ask anything I wanted to, and we talked about weed, which, you know, sometimes I guess don't want to do stuff like that, but he was awesome. He wasn't shy at all. He even cracked a couple jokes. It was a fun one.
Well, you know what they say, if you can't hang, there's the door, baby. Do you have any not crazy, do you have any standout experiences so far since starting the Local Band Smokeout, for the better or the worse? Anything that like stands out to you?
What do you mean by like standout experience?
So like a situation, you know, where maybe you got into a heated argument with someone, or something shocking happened, or something that just happened so far in your career that doesn't normally happen.
Probably. Nothing comes to mind right away, but something that you like made me just think of is I remember an experience where I did a reaction for someone and I hated the song and I was kind of rude on my comments, and that person saw it and they were like, dude, I cannot share this. Like, you bombed my band, blah, blah, blah. And I like bothered me. So later that night I was like thinking about it, and I was sitting there watching Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives with Guy Fieri, and I thought to myself, I've never seen an episode where he didn't like the food. But surely there's got to be a time when he's gone into a diner and like this food is terrible. But for the camera, he doesn't do that. So I thought to myself, I should change how I do reactions. And even if I don't like the song, find the stuff that's positive that I do like and focus on that. So I kind of stopped giving, I don't want to say bad scores, but bombing an artist, because they won't share it. And the goal is to get that band to be like, hey, check out this guy. He did a reaction. And other people are like, oh, cool. Let me go follow and check out what he does, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was like an interesting moment that stood out, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah, nice. Which kind of brings me on to this question. Has there ever been times where you've had to, maybe not record that day because your emotions are out of check? You're too angry one day, you're too sad, you fluctuate too high that day, or do you just let it roll?
Well, I definitely get burned out. There's days when I wake up and I don't want to do anything as far as like content goes. But on those days, I might not do anything, but it's very rare, but I might do one. But there's a time or two. I think there's 2 times ever out of almost 6,000 reactions where a song has like brought me to tears and I'm like crying on camera because of a song. And then I just don't want to do anything after that because it like moved me so much. So usually in that scenario, I'll have to throw on like a deathcore song right after one of those just to get the juices flowing all over again.
Yeah, that's fair enough. For me, I was just thinking like how hard it must be when you're always, when you're always streaming, always in the public eye, so to speak. And if you're pissed off for some reason, or if you're feeling a certain way before recording, it just must be the toughest time to just maintain your emotions.
I mean, it happens all the time. There'll be days when I'm like, I just don't really want to do it that day, but it gets tricky because we have so many scheduled guests that if I cancel that day, then we got to move them to a different day where we already have a guest on. So then there's 2 interviews that day. So calling in sick is very, very, very rare. But a lot of people don't know this, but I do like a 20-minute timer before the live show starts every day. And a lot of people come in and they're like, bro, just start. What are you doing? Why is there a 20-minute timer? And it's for 2 reasons. It's A, because we're getting like requests coming in. So when I start, I already have like 20 songs ready to go that people have requested. But B, it's really a second for me to just play dubstep and metal and hip hop and like songs I want to hear to get me like cranked up. So when I we're already live, but no one can see me until that timer ends. But as soon as we hit the like, okay, you can see me button, that I'm like ready to rock and roll, as opposed to just starting and kind of like being like, I don't want to be here, blah, 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 which doesn't happen very often. But the pre-timer music gets me juiced up and ready.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite pump up track for you, just in general? One song that always gets you going?
Anything from Zomboy. Even though I listen to metal like nonstop, I'm totally a metalhead. My second favorite genre is by far dubstep, but specifically bro step, like the crazy sporadic, like that kind of dubstep. So anything from Zomboy, which is just madness, gets me excited. But then at the same time, just some growls and high pitched screaming, also kind of just gets me in the zone.
Did you were you happy with the latest album by Skrillex? Quest for Fire.
There's some cool ones on with the double CD or whatever. Yeah. There's some cool ones, but he's ventured far away from his OG dubstep days. But I've actually been a fan of Sonny since From First to Last and everything. And I've seen him when he was in From First to Last in Orlando. Man, that was many years ago. But I guess you just can't do the wobbles and all that stuff forever. But I wish he would kind of just surprise us with another like Scary Monsters Part 2 EP or something.
That would be sick. I remember when that dropped, I was like 16. I think.
Yeah,
15.
Everyone was on it when it came out. We never heard anything like that before.
Yeah, he definitely rocked the world back then. The Prince of Dubstep.
Totally.
So is there a like doing what you do and putting in so many hours? Is there any maybe life lessons or work ethic things that you picked up while doing this that you didn't have before starting this. So learning to manage your schedule, or learning, a specific life lesson to help you through it.
Yes, I have a giant calendar that I stare at all the time. And I feel like everyone needs a big ass calendar, because you can always schedule stuff on your phone, but it helps me daily to look at this and pre-plan stuff ahead of time and know, okay, I know that this big artist, like next month we have Mystique coming on and we have Dayshell coming on. And for those in particular, those are not like an hour before, just Google and learn what I can. Those are more like deep dive. And the more research you do on your guests, the better the questions you'll ask. And the goal is to ask them stuff, not only to make them laugh, because then you can really pull out their personality, but to make the experience memorable. Because some of these artists do, if they have an album come out, they might do 40 interviews in 3 weeks, and you're just one of 40. But what makes it when all those 40 are done, they look back and they go, oh, BG, that one was cool. That one was different. I would do that again. So I try to ask stuff that other people wouldn't normally ask, and try to make that artist laugh, because that creates a memory, I would say. So do your research, and just do your research. That always helps.
Yeah. No, fair enough. That's, especially when you have a hype. I mean, like I guess any guest on, it is good to have that, have questions ready, have like, for me, I prefer having like notes or like cue cards or notes, because then I can just quickly look, ask, memorize my stuff,
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's definitely important to do your research beforehand.
You got to. No, there's definitely some interviews where I don't do any research. I can just kind of go through their Spotify and listen to a couple songs and hit the bio. And then I have like my general 40 or 50 questions that I ask. Not everyone, but I know that I can just kind of pull out at any time if I don't have additional material to ask them. And those generally get like good responses and answers. So it's like a combo of the two.
Yeah, exactly. What does the future look like for the Local Band Smokeout? Do you have any like interesting things coming up, or like, anything new, anything you want to work towards as an extension of the Local Band Smokeout?
Yes, we not a lot of people know this, but we launched what's actually launches in 2 days is Local Band Smokeout United Kingdom. And my buddy Stevie, who we've been playing this for like a month. He's in charge of it, and he just got a major job offer. So he's only going to be able to do like 2 or 3 episodes, and then he's trying to pass the reins to somebody else. So we actually need someone to take over that part of the show. But as far as what's coming up, in January, I set a goal. I think I was at like 24,000 YouTube subs in January. And my goal was to somehow get to 50,000 by New Year's. And we are at like 45.4 at the moment. So we're on track to hit that goal before New Year's. And my friend, that is going to be a champagne popping night for me, because the hours that go into it, I've earned a bottle of bubbly that night when we get there.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell. It's just like I said at the start, seeing your progression, from the outside in. Back when I used to do my fucking relentless reviews page, you'd always help share it. You'd always, would always go back and forth. And to see that blue tick next to your name, it's pretty badass. It's like, fuck, this guy made it, and it's just the coolest thing to see.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if you can tell us, what notable guest, if you can tell us, is coming up next for your show?
Yeah, I can call out a bunch. A lot of them, we try to focus on smaller artists, and those don't bring like a huge draw to the streams. Obviously, the bigger artists do. People tune in to see their favorite bands, but we do have a lot of smaller artists coming up. I'll just rat off a couple of them. As I speak, Unbound, Anger Overdose, Blood of the Beloved, Poet the Band, who just got off tour, Bullet to the Heart. We mentioned Mystique and Dayshell, and it's not announced yet, but Tom, by the time this comes out, it'll probably be announced. But Tom of Patient 67 wants to come back on, which I think this will be like his third time on. But he hit me up the day, and Patient 67 is a fantastic band out of Australia. Highly recommend you guys look them up if you're unfamiliar. But yeah, so those are a couple of big ones. We're always working on like what I call the Holy Grail interviews. And I'll just rattle off those artists. Obviously, Paul McCartney is number one. And that one's literally almost impossible. And then my number two, which I think is doable. I've just never gotten this band to read a message of mine that I've sent. And I've gone to every avenue you can imagine. Emails, managers, blah, blah, blah. Is Periphery. I really want to get Periphery on the show. And I think it's doable. We just haven't gotten it. And then Jason Butler of Fever 333, Let Live would be another Holy Grail one for me.
Fuck yeah. Well, hopefully within, hopefully within a couple of years, you can get all three.
You know what? You asked me a question earlier about who the bigger guests are that we've had on. I thought of another one. We've had Nick Nocturnal on.
Oh, wow.
And, that one is really cool. He gave us a ton of especially me, he gave me just a ton of YouTube advice. So I asked him some stuff about his music career and this and that, but I try to focus on just content and how we could expand on making videos better and what works for algorithms and stuff. So that was a really interesting interview.
Nice. It's just the guests you bring in and the level of support that your platform is, as you said, for the lesser known bands as well. You're like a pillar of the metal community or the music community in general. You're a pillar that I think is very important for bands who are trying to get their music out, who are trying to get some attention, but they don't know where to start. So I think you're the perfect in between just the perfect where you are. You're perfect for the bands to get some exposure. So you're a very necessary good in the world, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of bands that thank you for that.
That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate it.
So at the moment, as it stands, what would you say the best metal album of this year is?
Oh my gosh, that is hard. The Left to Suffer album that came out recently that has disappointed me on it is amazing. There's almost no skips on it. Obviously, Periphery is one of my favorite bands. Gent Is Not a Genre is really, really good. That is so tough to answer. I would say those two are up there. Let's say those two are up there.
I have heard the latest Periphery album ages ago, a few months ago. And yeah, no, it was good. It's a band I was only introduced to recently by my co-host Ren.
If you get a chance, go and listen to the album called Juggernaut from them. Juggernaut Alpha Omega. That is their best work in my opinion. I think people watching this will disagree, but that is my favorite one.
I definitely will. I've got a day off today, so there's no reason why I can't walk my dog and give that album a try. So I'll definitely take you up on that recommendation. Like I said, it's just after all these years, being able to have you on in person with your crazy schedule and just being able to talk to shit. It's a really, because obviously there are a lot of guests I can have on, they're a bit stiff or they're a bit shy or they don't really give back the same kind of vibe as you. So it can be hard sometimes, but you're just chill, you're down to earth, and it's the best kind of guest to have.
Thank you, dude. Very, very cool. You make it easy too.
After my first interview went terrible back in the day, and here I am honing my skills and just trying my best, trying to expose the world to people, who are people like you, and help grow the local band Smokeout.
It's just trial and error. I guess the more you do it, the more it comes natural.
Exactly. And I can just tell within a decade, you're going to be a household name. You're going to be the godfather of the streaming shit.
I cannot even imagine what that would be like or feel like. That would be weird, but cool. But that would be weird.
Well, make sure you don't forget me in 10 years time. Make sure when you're famous with Elon Musk having dinner with fucking Zuckerberg.
I won't. If that ever happens, I'll invite you.
Oh yes. We'll hang out with Zuckerberg.
We'll have dinner on his yacht or something.
before we drown, inevitably like that submarine. Look. This was scheduled to be a nice, short and sweet interview today. I just wanted to, talk about your career, talk about the Local Band Smokeout, and I think it's gone very well.
I appreciate it. I want to plug one more thing. A lot of people don't know that we have a Canada version of the show and an Australia version of the show. We got to plug the UK version, which starts in 2 days, I believe at 5 a.m. Pacific time on Twitch, Local Band Smokeout UK. But if you are watching and you know anybody in Australia or that makes music or Canada, please look up those subsidiary versions of our show and hit them up and show them your music, because they do the exact same thing I do. Mine is slightly different in the fact that we allow bigger bands to be on the show. And that's just because when we do these tournaments, we like the small bands to be able to go against the big bands. And I'm happy to say that right now, we only started that this year. It's 5-4 little bands as far as the tournament winners. So
nice.
W for the little guys on that one.
well, I'll make sure when I'm editing, I'll make sure to add the links and put the link above so that if anyone has any bands, they can just go to it.
Yeah, hell yeah. Those guys are always looking for new stuff to jam, especially if it's from Canada or Australia. But they'll also play, local bands in South America, whatever. But they tend to focus on, 5 or 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify or less.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. As someone from Australia, I'm sure I should know a few local bands in the scene, and I'll tell them to give it a go.
Hell yeah, you'll have fun. Those guys are cool.
I take your word for it. Look, again, thank you so much for your time, bro. It's been fun.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it. I had a blast.
Yeah, me too. And I'll make sure as soon as it's out, I'll send it right to you, and we'll go from there.
Awesome, Corbs. I appreciate you, buddy. Have an excellent day, dude.
You too. Have a good one.
Cheers.